Rangers Journal now.
Hello everybody and welcome back to Rangers Journal channel. My name's Scotty and I'm delighted to be joined by Sasha Pisani, who's going to help us speak about Kevin Muscat. I think this is the interview everybody's been waiting on. In terms of Muscat, he seems to be the fans' favourite. He's certainly not the bookies' favourite, but Sash, how are you?
Hi mate, thanks for having me. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, sort of keen to see where Kevin lands, and I know there's been a lot of speculation even before Clement ended up at Rangers, but yeah, it's interesting to see where he does land in his career.
It was actually it was well reported in the UK that I think it was between him and Clement for the job. He'd had second, third interviews and things like that. Looking back now, we wish we'd got him. I was certainly one of them at the time. That it was really split 50-50 between the two. So now that the job's come back up and with the takeover happening, I think this will be an interview that people are very keen to see. So tell us a wee bit about Kevin Muscat, what you know about him and his managerial career so far.
Well, they're fortunate to sort of been able to, follow his career and, in Japan, not only in Australia, but when he moved to Japan and in China, keep in touch with him and, do quite a lot of interviews with him. So I'm fortunate to sort of know what he's like on and off the field. I think the thing with Kev, just before we get to sort of tactics, I think there's a perception of him, in the UK and, from his playing days of being this hard man, one of the dirtiest footballers. I think probably unfairly, I think perception is a crazy thing, not just in football but in life. So definitely not that kind of person. Away from the field, whatever you see as a player, when he's a really smart footballing brain. I think being in Australia, seeing him come back and play at the end of his career, really good with the ball in his feet. He wanted to play attacking football as a player, play out from the back, and you see that now with his teams, the way they play in Japan and in China. A really exciting coach, and obviously a lot of eyes on him given his association with Ange, being an assistant at Victory, and following the footsteps of Yokohama, sort of a similar sort of trajectory in terms of where they've sort of landed after Australia. But really exciting to see where he does land. Obviously, he's really happy in China and don't think he's in a rush to move, but I guess if the right opportunity did come up, and I've read previously Craig Moore speaking about how that ship may have sailed with Kev at Rangers. I know he was very close to getting it initially, whether it comes to fruition, but I do feel like he's ready to take that next step back into Europe. I know there was a brief spell in Belgium and issues with licenses and stuff like that, but he's the next big one after Ange in terms of Aussie exports and coaches that is set to make a big impact. I think in Europe, he's conquered Asia, winning titles in Australia, Japan, and China now, and not just winning titles; it's the manner and way he's doing it. And the football, I think people will have noticed that the football he's playing is really making a big impact and changing things.
See, in terms of Ange's influence over Kevin Muscat, obviously Ange came here, had a very successful spell at Celtic. The football couldn't keep up with it. That's the only way to explain it, is that none of the teams, including Rangers, could keep up with the style of football. So I think the clamour amongst the Rangers support is because they think Kevin Muscat plays the exact same way and they know the football works here, so there's an element of safety about Kevin Muscat, if that makes any sense. Because we've appointed manager after manager after manager and it hasn't worked out. How similar are Kevin Muscat and Ange Postecoglou in terms of style, and are they carbon copies to each other, or is Kevin Muscat get very much his own kind of way he wants to do things?
I wouldn't say they're carbon copies. I think Kevin's spoken openly about how big of an impact Ange has had on him from his days at Melbourne Victory when Ange was his head coach, and I think Kevin sort of wasn't too much of in a rush to take that next step in the head coach, and didn't feel like he was ready, but Ange really pushed him, and he just hasn't looked back since. So he's clearly had an impact on the way Kevin looks at football. But he's definitely his own person. Like he loves attacking football and being on the front foot. But he has his own spin on things, which I think is important as well. He's his own man. You do see similarities, but I wouldn't say there's carbon copy there. I think he does like to do things his own way, which is good. You don't want to be the same. And there's slight differences there. But you definitely do see sort of fingerprints of Ange and what he's learned from him. And just bringing out the best in players. Like obviously had the success at Yokohama F Marinos, won the title 2022. Was very unlucky not to win it 2023. Also won the Super Cup, which was the first in the club's history. And I think if you look at Yokohama F Marinos since he left, they've sort of gone on a downward spiral. Yes, they reached the Champions League final last season, but they're in the relegation spots at the moment. So they've definitely gone backwards since Kev left. But if you look at China, I think Chinese football is a much more physical league to Japan, and he's gone in there and tried to bring this football to China, and he's done it successfully. Playing that brand of football isn't easy against teams that are really physical, and they made history last season, most consecutive wins. Most goals scored, and they just absolutely blitzed it. And I think it blew a lot of people away in Japan. But not just that, it's also bringing the best out of players. Like that Oscar there, former Chelsea star, Brazil star. There was one forward, Mateus Vargas, their ex-Espanyol forward. So he obviously another young guy, but he had his career best season under Kev, 12 goals or so. So just him being able to bring out the best, not just and develop young guys, but experienced players. I think that's a noticeable thing too with Kev, and an exciting aspect of his coaching too.
What is his style of coaching? Is it like getting the ball forward as quick as it can? Is it that kind of really, really fast-paced attacking football?
Yeah, there's definitely high-octane football on the front foot. He's also quite adaptable to, being in transition. But it's definitely being on the front foot, wanting to take the game to teams and being attacking and getting fans on the edge of their seat. That's a big thing. He wants to see attacking football. I remember him saying to me, when you're a kid playing football, you want to score goals. You want to, and he wants to bring. That's what he enjoyed as a kid, and he wants to bring that out in his football. I think you see that when he was in Australia, when he was in Japan, now in China. So that's a big thing for him. He wants to attack. And obviously, I think he's obviously very versatile too. I think, when you need to change things up a bit, he can do that if he needs to. But it's very, very front foot football, which I think makes him an attractive proposition for clubs. I know there was interest, and he spoke, when I spoke to him at the end of last season, without naming the club, he said he was very close to a club, and I think a lot of people sort of put two and two together, saying it was Rangers. And he said a couple of things there in a piece I wrote. So yeah, I think his football, definitely not a defensive coach. So it really is fun to watch the way they sort of play through the press and get through and score a lot of goals.
In terms of player development, like you spoke about the boy Vargas, has he got a decent track record? Like Rangers need to buy low, sell high. That's just the kind of trade model of most football clubs just now, unless you're like a Man City or a Newcastle, etc. Would you say he's good at improving players?
Oh, definitely. Without you got to put him on the spot here with other specific names, but he showed that at Yokohama F Marinos. I think the perception with Marinos, because they're part of the CFG, the City Football Group, I think a lot of people think that they're one of the sort of bigger clubs in terms of resourcing in Japan, which is not really the case. They're probably really mid-table, because I think CFG is about 20% there, so they're nowhere near some of the big spenders in Japan. So when he won the league in 2022, was still sort of uphill battle in terms of budgets, and then the next season they lost players. And why I feel like that 2023 season where they missed out on the title, even though they finished second, is probably even a bigger achievement, because the players they were losing, you lost a couple of players overseas. I know even Owata went to Celtic, who was the MVP, and you're replacing them with pretty much second division players, which isn't ideal. So he was able to get the best out of these players and still come within a whisker of winning back-to-back titles. So, really good developing players. Players really enjoy playing under him. Like even Oscar came when he went to China. Oscar was there for a while. And Oscar's obviously not a kid anymore. In his mid-30s, and he loved it. It was obviously very demanding in terms of fitness levels and training and stuff like that. But everyone bought in and really enjoyed it, which I think is the big thing. If players are enjoying that, I think that goes a long way into sort of that buy-in and getting success.
Has he got what's his relationship like with the players? Is he a bit of a disciplinarian? Is he a motivator? Obviously, we all know what he was like as a player, and that he's not like that as a manager.
No, he's very caring, very like. Yes, I know Marinos back in the day when he was in Japan showed a lot of clips of him behind the scenes in dressing rooms and stuff like that, and him addressing players. And yeah, it not like like I said, go back to that perception thing. I think nothing like if people may have seen as a player. Yeah, just a really, really good man manager. When he needs to speak to the players, gives them space. But he's nothing like people may have seen as a player, which I think he was a fantastic player. Maybe that's been biased as an Aussie and seeing him play for the Socceroos, but a really good play. I think it was probably misunderstood, and a few sort of issues may have overshadowed what a good player he was. But as a coach, I don't think a disciplinarian. Maybe when he needs to crack the whip a bit, he probably does behind closed doors. But he's a very hands-on sort of coach and understanding with the players.
It's been reported over here since he missed out in the Rangers job. I think it was Craig Moore come on and go radio and says that the ship might have sailed for a future opportunity. Do you have that opinion as well?
I honestly don't know. I feel like, and I think I said this on Twitter at the time, like when Clement left, I feel like he was never going to come then. I think it needs to be, if this is going to happen, it has to be a full pre-season for him to come in and actually just influence change, not come in and pick up the pieces mid-season. It's just not going to work if the way he wants to, if he does come in to change everything. So I'm not sure if the ship has sailed. I think, if they came in, they were serious and they showed a vision to him and like they're actually going to back him. No, I can't speak on his behalf, but I wouldn't say that the door's closed on that, in my personal opinion. He's definitely not in the rush to leave China. He's really wants to influence change there, but I feel like the right offer came along, and obviously he has a history of Rangers, and I think that's probably a big thing as well. Like, he didn't spend a huge amount of time there, but there is that history there that probably does help. He knows what the club is like. He knows how important it is, to overtake Celtic and do good things and get the club, firing again. So I think that is probably something important as well. He does know how the club operates, the fans and stuff like that. So I think that could be a key thing as well.
Yeah. Do you think he's ready for a move over to Scotland?
Oh, 100%. I've been saying it for a while. I feel like he's done the hard yards for a while now. And even Ange has spoken on record, I think it was last year, saying that he's ready to get into Europe and not just be in Europe, but actually do some big things. Ange has been even though maybe the Rangers fans want to hear, an ex-Celtic coach, talking about that, but Ange has been, I know he has a history of Kev, but he's always rated him highly, and Kev has got the runs on the boards now that I think that he, in my opinion, is ready to take that next step, wherever that may be. I'm not sure, but he's destined for Europe, whether it's this season, 2025, 26, I'm not sure, but I could easily see him back in Europe and doing a really good job.
What has he ever worked under? We've got a new structure in place over here with the takeover happening. I don't know if you know San Francisco 49ers with Andrew Gap already buy into the club. We've got a new sporting director starting, Richard Thelwell, I think it is, from Everton. Has he worked under a sporting director or a director of football and director?
Yeah. He had that. He had that in Japan. He has that in China as well. So yeah, nothing new for him in terms of that structure. I think that's. I remember speaking to it was someone at Bayer Leverkusen at the time, my previous job, for an interview and talking about sporting directors. I think it was more related to the Premier League, but I think a lot of clubs were lagging behind in that area in terms of having these sporting directors. And that's modern football now. And I think, Kevin's been exposed to that for a while, so that's nothing new for him.
Right, okay, cool. is he better off managing a ball dominant team in terms of like Rangers are always kind of top two, mostly second and first just now, but so that wouldn't be an issue for him, would it, having to beat a low block every other week?
No. I think he's just going to come in and just whatever way he wants to play, he's going to instill that. And if players don't buy in, I think he'll bring in his own players to do that. Obviously, it may be a big job. There may be a lot of players he wants to clear out if he does come in, given the sort of struggles Rangers have had.
Yeah.
But yeah, he'll have a clear vision of the way he wants football to be played and how he expects his players to execute that. But yeah, he'd be well, and I'm sure he would have done his homework given how close he was to the job previously, and I'm sure he would have presented things to Rangers as the way he sees things. Yeah, really, it'd be interesting to see which way they do go. He's probably not the favourite in terms of the bookies, like you said, but I think not just being biased because I'm an Aussie and I've followed his career, but I think he is the perfect option.
Personally, so they are. I think it's time. What Rangers need to do now is bring in somebody with an attacking philosophy and then kind of set a continuation plan after it. So if he comes here, he does well. We've got a list of managers that are similar to his style of play, and then we can continue to build on that. See, in terms of what Ange's done at Celtic, brought over Kyogo, Daisen Maeda, various different players. Would you think that's a market that Kevin Muscat would go into if he did come to Rangers?
I think it's a market for everyone, to be honest. I think it's a market that's untapped. I think he definitely be keeping an eye on it. I think in terms of the way transfer fees are these days and trying to get value for money, I think you'd be silly not to look there, even if you're not Rangers, if you're other clubs. There's some really good Japanese players, good Asian players in general. If you go back to even Australia, look at Portsmouth signing 4 players directly from the A-League here. So that's clubs are trying to be creative and trying to get their bang for buck. I'd expect him to sort of scour the Japanese market and try and bring in players if he feels like they can add value to Rangers and maybe have some resale value. If you look at this Sesavri, Hatate at Celtic and Kyogo, two players that really shine the light on Japanese football. I'd expect him to look there and look beyond as well and try and be creative.
I'm trying to think what I was going to ask you there. It's away. What do you think overall then, in terms of, do you think this is a move that could happen this summer, in your opinion?
I don't say why not. I personally hope it does happen, but we'll just have to wait and see what Rangers have planned. They might want to go a different way, which is fair enough as well. But I do feel like I know he was very close initially. I'd love to see it happen, just to see another Aussie coaching in Scotland and seeing, that they, even just in Europe, just to show people that there's, good coaches coming through, which I think the previous in the pudding. But yeah, I can see it happening. Obviously, I think a few stars have to align there. But yeah, there's no reason why it can't happen.
Aye, definitely. That's what I was going to ask you. You were talking about licensing things with his first stint in Belgium. Rangers fans, when there's a managerial candidate, they're looking at anything in the slightest wee negative, they tend to bring it up. So there has been things about his time in Belgium. So what was it that went wrong there?
Well, the licensing is just an issue with, across all sort of Aussie coaches. Like you have your top sort of badges here, and for some reason they're not recognised in Europe. So it's not just him. There's a few coaches I've spoken to that spend a lot of money and time, and then you get over to Europe, and there was a coach who's coaching here, but he spent a lot of time at RB Leipzig with I don't know, slip my mind. I've gone blank, but he spent a lot of time at RB Leipzig, and then he went to Genoa in Italy, and because his license wasn't recognised, he had to have unofficial titles. So he was the assistant. He was the assistant, but unofficially, so he had like just crazy sort of titles as a dodge that. So when Kev was in Belgium, he was not listed as the head coach, but he was the head coach, and it started off well there, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work out over there. But that was a learning experience for him. I think, like for anyone, I don't think things go well, things don't go so well. Like you're looking at Ange at Tottenham. I still think he's a fantastic coach, and it hasn't gone according to plan this season, but it doesn't make him a bad coach. I'm steadfast in belief that if he doesn't continue at Tottenham next season, he'll bounce back and have success elsewhere. So that's just part of his journey, and he's bounced back terrifically well. Going to F Marinos and doing what he did there, and now in China. So yeah, I wouldn't really focus on that too much. It's just part of his journey. He's learned from that, and I think, he's ready for that next step.
Cool, Sasha. Thank you for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
Do you want to tell folk where they can find you?
Yeah, just on Twitter at SACHKO, so Sashko or Sashko. And yeah, just covering A-Leagues and Australian football and all that kind of stuff. Just AFC. So yeah.
All right, no problem. Well, thanks for joining me, mate.
Well, thanks for having me.
Cheers.
Cheers, mate.